Thank you. And I will do this in English, uh, mostly because the hour and the heat are conspiring. Uh, no, because the hour and the heat are conspiring and then probably affect and impede and inhibit what is a rusty Italian fluency from when I was a younger man. Yeah. Yes, I am fresh with CMS in New York. I've been there for just a little bit over a year. Um, Having worked about 25 years, I'm a lawyer in the immigration and migration and refugee world, representing, running programs, mostly with the Catholic Charities in New York, and mostly working with asylum seekers and refugees. I'm delighted to be here. It's been a wonderful 2 days. So thank you, Father Lanier, for there, Father Graziano, Lorenzo, for hosting us and hosting us in this time and so generously. So I think I'm supposed to be brief, which is very hard for me to do. So I'll do my best, but you'll have to just cut me off when you need to. Thank you very much. The first thing I'll have to note, since I am a lawyer, for the record, as they say, my name has two L's behind it. But lucky for you, it's pronounced the same way. So no harm, no foul. Once again, right? But let me just say a couple of things about the work of the CMS in New York, about our priorities, and a little bit of context. So I wanted to start with the context, which is really more high level, a context and frame, a perspective, which has been really brought out today at length. But I think it's just worth saying again from my own experience in this field, and of course with CMS, three things: realities, the realities of numbers, the number of migrants, internally displaced people, refugees, asylees on the move, record numbers. We seem to say this every year, right? We've never seen this before. Every year we keep saying this. We've never seen this before, but it is a reality. Two, the reality of the debate, division, vitriol, binary thinking. It's one thing or the other. And polarization, which I guess is the language, the word of the day. But again, a reality to which CMS needs to be, and we all continue to be sensitized. Two, for me, for us, affirmation and promotion. What do I mean by that? Well, affirmation and promotion of person-centered and of receiving community-focused solutions and ideas. Solutions and ideas. And I agree with the professor who earlier said, to some extent, data doesn't persuade policymakers, narrative or public perception does. But we need to be true and real to the truth. And there is a truth, despite what Pontius Pilate said. Third, witness. Witness to the reality of these numbers, witness to the reality of the debate, and witness to the gifts of migrants and to the wounds that exist on the social body and on the body of migrants as a result of the experience of migration in a broken time. What are our priorities at CMS New York? Well, we've somewhat loosely defined and designed for the course of my tenure in the next 18 months. One is the undocumented in New York. Two, and by the way, I should say undocumented in the United States. Two, the border. And by the border, I actually don't mean the border. The border isn't the border. The border is a stage on which the drama of two fantastically profound dysfunctions are played out for reasons of division and vitriol that certain in the political classes can capitalize on. The brokenness of root causes, as we call it, and the brokenness of pathways, particularly in the US system, of course. Solutions, pathways, novel ways of redesigning, updating, resourcing immigration laws. The border itself is in fact, to an extent, an existential fiction, though it is quite real in the imaginative discourse. Three, refugees and asylum seekers, obviously an important and significant priority for CMS New York. And then fourth, integration. In the broadest sense, accompaniment, encounter, but to say, how can we learn and study and improve from each other and amplify? What are the services, the parishes, the organizations, the educational institutions that perhaps express, manifest, articulate, and implement Catholic sensibility? So with these priorities in this context and frame, CMS New York, as I understand it, because with every week you sort of learn something new, really three main areas of commitment, work, and service that the organization does: education, advocacy, and research. And I know I'm supposed to talk about research, but I'm going to leave it for last because it's a research that informs the education and the advocacy. So I just need to tell you a little bit about that. Education. Every year, CMS, and you're all invited, hosts an academic and policy conference in New York, November 18th this year. Please come. It's our 60th anniversary. So your support would be great. Scholars, academic, policymakers, government folks come to this conference to discuss, like this, issues of the day. 2, every year we do a migration integration convening, which really looks at that other priority that I had mentioned, to say and to see and to hear and to discuss and to share. How do we as a faith community, and as I said, it's somewhat of a tribal event, Catholic, right, engage, promote, defend, integrate, and do that work, and where can we learn from each other? So we have a 2.5 day conference for convening at a university. This year it's going to be St. John's, done it at Notre Dame, Marquette, San Diego, and other places in the past. 3, we conduct a healthy number of webinars every year, anywhere between 6 and 10, on really kind of hot issues of the day. So this year we did one on the border so far. We had one with Catholic leaders spoke out, Cardinal Dolan, Bishop DiMarzio. We did one on the refugee program, sort of how has it been resurrected under Biden, and one on the undocumented and so on. Of course, like you all others, we do podcasts, media work, social media, and a distribution network of about 14,000 who receive our information. We develop monthly, if not more frequently, a brief, short, 2 to 5 pages long, on a subject that is, again, relevant, important, topical in the moment. And finally, what I would say is our communications, but really is our scholarly and policy publications, the International Migration Review and the Journal on Migration and Human Security, as well as a bi-weekly migration update that's shared with the network. That's the education piece, the communication piece, if you will. The advocacy we do is sort of classically so. I've spent a lot of years in New York, so I've worked with the New York City mayor's office, as well as the legislature. At the federal level, of course, we do so as well, and inform proposals for legislation. Just recently, Senator Cardin introduced some legislation on the stateless, which cited our work. And of course, an international presence and consultative status at the UN and ECOSOC. So now we get to research. I'll just describe a couple of areas that we're engaged with now. So it's not past research for present. Sounds good? Okay. We have a commitment over the last 10 years to deeply study the undocumented in New York, in the United States through CMS New York. And we have a platform that provides estimates on a yearly basis and can drill down into the community level with hundreds of demographic characteristics of the undocumented population in the United States. This is a publicly available, someone had mentioned availability of data, publicly available tool, but also we can receive requests for a deeper study. Why is this important? Because again, I think the question of the undocumented is a chronic and frankly caste system problem in the United States that no one is really willing to speak of in that way. But most importantly, recently, because we are also using that data to develop in a sense, rebuttal research proposal, a rebuttal to the candidate Trump's idea to detain and deport 11 million Americans, frankly. So what are we doing? Well, this summer now, and we produce it right in time for the conventions, a report that looks at the economic, the fiscal, the rule of law, the humanitarian costs, which are significant. The undocumented are 5% of the US workforce, $6 billion in tax revenue, $12 billion in yearly Social Security. GDP would go down by 5 trillion over 10 years if 11 million people were undocumented, not to mention the costs of raising 6.1 million children from mixed status families. So then the numbers go on. With respect to the undocumented, we also do produce things that are affirming, right? So we'll tell New York City, here's what the characteristics are of the New York population and New York State, interestingly, on a prior statement made here, here's what's interesting about the relationship between the undocumented and the fastest growing job sectors in New York State, which are cooks, home health, taxi, delivery, and medical support staff. The undocumented are populating those fastest growing job sectors in the New York State economy. Natural, easy, theoretically, right? Does it influence public policy? It could, it's important. The border I mentioned to you, we're working on. I'm doing a report with Hope Border Institute to, again, sort of demystify the heat of the debate and to also demystify the notion that there's an invasion, right? People who are entering the border, for the most part, are being tagged and placed into the immigration system. Now, that leads to another research project that we're doing on legal services at the federal, national level in concert with Villanova University, Catholic Charities USA, to look at how can we expand and propose to the government modalities for increasing legal representation. Why? A study we did a couple of years ago shows that there are 1,450 people in need of legal services for every lawyer in the United States. 1,400 people for every lawyer. In Alabama, that's an average. So in Alabama, it's 6,000. In New York, it's 800. So legal services really don't exist in a meaningful way. So what are we doing? We're looking to see how we can propose and design and offer the licensing of non-professionals, or I should say paraprofessionals, to enter that space. 40,000 in 10 years. These solutions are critical. And they're critical because why? Because we have a chronically broken system. And the border problem manifests itself by the fact that everybody who enters the border is placed into an asylum adjudicative system that was built 30, 40, 50 so years ago. 3 million people are now in a system with only 650 judges. 650 judges means a caseload of about 4,500 people per judge, which now makes sense when you learn in the United States that if you are given a notice to go to court at the border, probably today, 2024, your first court appearance would be 2030, 6 years, just to get to court. Now, there's mixed results in that, but that's an average. Why? Again, under-resourced, archaic, not modernized immigration adjudicative system. So what can we do to help? Well, we make a report on that to say you need more judges, you need to fix the system, but also you can get more lawyers into the system. Finally, an important project that we've been working on is called The Border is Everywhere. When Governors DeSantis and the guy from Texas, I can't remember his name right now, decided to bus people from the southern border to the interior cities, saying, hey, guess what? We don't have to keep everybody here. We're going to send them to New York City. We're going to send them to Martha's Vineyard. Who's ever heard of Martha's Vineyard as a luxury island, right? So it was brilliant, actually, but cynical. And the cities like New York, Chicago, Denver, LA had to deal with this reality and deal with the fact that they had said for years we were sanctuary cities. But now New York says, oh, wow, we have to house 200,000 asylum seekers. So we're doing a study that looks at two things. One is with 5 partners, Catholic Charities partners from the border, San Diego, a couple places in Texas and Arizona, if we can coordinate the case management handoff from those border agencies, which see up to 15,000 people a month, with 5 cities in the interior, New York, Newark, West Palm Beach, Louisville, and another one, are the outcomes improved when people are connected with a case management support at the beginning? And the results are showing yes. That is to say, accompaniment, encounter, make a difference to how people find housing, how people find jobs, how people put their kids in school, and so on. The classic questions of resettlement. So with that said, I want to say one last thing, what we're not working on, which is one thing, but it's really, really important. We have proposed and would like to propose a study around communication and opinions, and do a study that's geographical about Catholics' perspectives on immigration in the United States, so that we could do focus groups and the studies that's needed to be there to better, in fact, enter the space of narrative and language, so as to enter the pews, enter the churches, enter the ministries, so as to begin to change that narrative.